Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. Let's chat a little bit of Colorado. What was your immediate reaction to them being ranked second overall in the Big 12 in the new EA Sports video game?
Shocked, quite frankly, TJ, because everyone in America that has followed Colorado in their offseason has picked them at the very low end of the Big 12 conference and struggled with whether or not they would make a bowl game. I think their game against Nebraska is going to be huge for which of those two teams actually gets the postseason. I think the loser, who will likely be Colorado, will not play in a bowl game. And while I sit here and say, I think the chances that that team in Boulder, gets to the postseason are slim, EA Sports says that's a top 16 team in America, sitting right at 16 with one of the best offenses and defenses in the country. What this shows me is the reporters who watched Colorado last year, the media, the fans, everybody who could see what's going on at Colorado, they know this team kind of fell apart at the seams to the point where their head coach's son was on his Instagram story begging other players to transfer in. EA Sports said, oh, look, 24/7 says that Colorado has a bunch of 4 and 5 stars. We should make them the second best team in the Big 12. There's a flaw in the video game there that does not directly correlate to how good Colorado is going to be this season.
It feels like Colorado has, like you just mentioned, 247 ratings.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, probably the best player in the game in Travis Hunter. Obviously, it's hard to quantify quarterback versus other positions, but a really elite player, a really good quarterback, which obviously factors in a lot. I guess I can understand from a player perspective. I don't know that they have the depth there, but the things that I think aren't measured as well in a video game are just the way your team plays together. Like, I guess I still think it's too high, but I almost can understand it, especially offensively. Now, defensively, I've got some questions because offensively, like, they weren't super efficient, but they did put up a lot of points. They did put up a lot of yards. Like, if that's how you want to look, I can almost understand offensively. Defensively, I got a lot of questions. But again, all that aside, I guess I can understand it from a talent perspective, but just not how the team plays together, how they operate, not to call out Coach Prime, but the coaching aspect and the coordinator aspect. But how do you factor those things into a ratings only thing? And so I don't know that. I guess that's kind of the grace that I try to give EA with it is like, well, it is just on the players. And then we've seen ultra talented teams in a lot of sports fail and not know how to play together. I still think it's too high, but that's kind of the way that I've had to lie to myself and explain it to myself in my mind.
Kind of hit the nail on the head here with if you go to let's say the Florida State roster, or you go to the Utah State roster, right? How do I take that 2-star guy or that 4-star guy and rate him vastly different from the other 2-star guy or 4-star guy, especially if they're transferring from school to school or they are a highly rated recruit coming out of high school? You can't say, hey, this is a 3-star at Colorado, he's going to be a 75. This is a 3-star at Florida State, he's going to be an 84. We can't do that. So I understand why, as a video game company, you got to go, well, shoot, based on their roster on paper, we kind of got to do this. But then when I see that they are the number 20 team in the country defensively, number 8 offensively, I get it. They have maybe the best offensive player in the country, maybe eventually the best defensive player in the country with the way that Travis Hunter is able to cover the field and just make things happen. However, those two guys can't run an entire football team, and I don't believe that a school who has over-under win total of 5.5 games could be considered as an actual top 20 team in real life. Like this is going to clearly create a distinction between real life and EA Sports video game. And what you can't really factor into that ranking is that Colorado is playing AAU football right now. There's a revolving door of players coming in and out. We saw that it didn't really work last year. I don't think they'll be complete cheeks, as the kids are saying nowadays, but I do think that they are a 6-7 win team. Again, they'll struggle to get to the postseason, and EA's ranking doesn't reflect that, and I get why it doesn't.
Yeah, what I'm interested to see is what the coaching skill trees look like, right? I think Florida State is rated a little bit lower than where they're actually going to be this year. I think their offense was like 23rd, and I think that Florida State has a better offense than the 23rd best offense in the country. But I'm okay with those ratings because I know that Mike Norvell will coach them up better, he'll develop them better, and he's got a more innovative offense than most programs have, right? And so that will raise their level. Well, what does Coach Prime's and these coordinators' skill trees look like? Does it somewhat lower where they're at to get them to their rating? So, okay, voted 11th though just this week by the media. So we're the other way. Is that too low, or is that where you'd have them?
I think you're in a square spot at 11. I mean, they're still below TCU. They're below Texas Tech. I think those are better rosters, better teams going into 2024. Glad that they're so far below West Virginia and Iowa State, who return, in essence, their entire rosters. Oklahoma State's in the same boat there. The contributors in the Big 12, the top teams in the Big 12, from Kansas State to Utah to Arizona to Oklahoma State, those schools, have a roster, and the all Big 12 preseason team reflected that could very well win the conference. Colorado is so far behind those schools, and they're still ahead of Cincinnati. They're still ahead of Baylor. I don't think they're the worst school in the Big 12, but 11 feels appropriate. I still don't have the confidence to put a Colorado team that was 4-8 last year above a TCU team that's just a year removed from going to the national championship game and beating Michigan in the college football playoff. I can't put them over year 3, Joey McGuire at Texas Tech, who is recruited with the best of them in the Big 12 for the last couple of seasons. Again, no qualms with having that school above a Baylor, above a Cincinnati, even above a BYU, and that's because the talent disparity. Colorado's much more talented on paper than BYU or Houston, but TCU is where I draw the line. I think the Big 12 media got it right here.
The thing that I think is tough for them is kind of what's tough and been tough for the Lakers the last few years is just because you're down doesn't mean that teams are going to take it easy on you. And
100%.
You have that brand, and not that Colorado's like this amazing brand that just.
But Deion is. I think Deion brings that brand. Yeah.
So I think what makes it tough for them is they also get everyone's best shot, right? Yep. If you said Colorado's skill level is comparable to, nobody's getting up for TCU like that. Nobody's getting up for Texas Tech like that. There's a rivalry or whatever. Nobody's getting up for Baylor like that on any given Saturday. Everybody wants to beat Colorado because of the media that comes with it. The just the aura that is Travis Hunter and Shiloh and Shador and Coach Prime. So I think that makes it even tougher. No one sleeps on Colorado. Nobody takes them lightly. Colorado State should not have been close to them last year.
Right.
Arizona State should not have been close to them last year. And they lost some games that they shouldn't. And so, I think that makes it even tougher this year. I don't think teams are intimidated to play them. I think they're up for it pretty big.
You put a target on your back. If you mentioned it, for TCU or a Texas Tech, schools that have a lot of respect, nobody's walking into that going, we're about to beat the TikTok darlings. We're about to beat this loudmouth coach. There are schools like even Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin. He doesn't necessarily have a target because a lot of those kids see his tweets and go, that's funny. I wish that my head coach would, retweet pictures of pretty college girls. Kiffin, he plays the line. Deion does not. He walks into a room and says, I don't know how to read this room, and then just starts saying stuff. And that gives fuel for Dan Lanning last year to look at the locker room and go, hey, I don't need a pregame speech. He just gave you one. Let's go kill these guys because they are the just jackasses of college football, pardon. But that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Nobody. You think about where they rank too, in most hated teams, right? You think about what teams are most hated. Well, Ohio State and Notre Dame just because of who they've been forever, right? Georgia, Alabama because they're good. There's some weird ones like maybe A&M and others that you're just
but none of those are 4-8,
you think Colorado's up there with all them, maybe higher. Who's the most hated team in college football? Right or wrong, Colorado's up there. I don't know that they're number one. If you asked any given player, would you rather beat Colorado this year or would you rather beat Georgia? I don't know. I think you're going to have a lot of answers that say both. I think you're going to have a pretty split crowd, though. So, Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find you? Where can they hear you more?
At LO Big 12 on Twitter, Locked On Big 12, wherever you get your podcasts, or right here on YouTube. TJ, it's always a pleasure.
Awesome, man. We have chatted this week about some other Big 12 happenings. You can click the video on the screen right now to go check those out.